Hey guys, shawnvmartin here, and since I'm not full of shit, I really am going to do the hour-long build-off challenge that I posed to the other builders who were on the live stream last weekend. So, I've set myself up with a clock, an hour time limit, and a photograph, and I'm ready to go. So here we go with my Mountain Dew and my Milky Way candy bars in hand. I'm sitting down at my computer and wow, this is a little different. I had to make an area for myself to build in first thing, which meant that I spent the first 2 minutes of my build being an administrator, but that's okay. It wasn't a big deal. I actually didn't use my whole hour anyway. So I'm measuring out the 3 different elements that are going to be on the ground. Of course, the 2 treads and the body of WALL-E, as you can see on the side there. No, I'm not burying the lead here. I'm making WALL-E. And the first thing I do is the treads. I decided that the most important thing was the scale of the thing. And the one thing that would be the hardest to change later would be the treads that touch the ground. Because the body can be very easily adjusted because it's just a box. The eyes I figured were going to depend on everything else. So basically I decided the first thing had to be the treads. So I'm working on them mostly, oh, there's my first sip of Mountain Dew. I'm working on them mostly just building. I will do some stacking in a second, but mostly just placing blocks, and here I'm about to start stacking. And I'm using the improved chat mod to do a sequence of 4 commands over and over. I'm moving, shifting, stacking, moving, shifting, stacking. And there we go. There's the first tread. And the problem compared to the picture, and this is the first of a lot of sacrifices, is it's not quite dimensionally correct. The tread looks like it should be a lot higher in the picture. And that was when like I said, this is when I decided to start making small concessions. Like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make that wheel round. Or, oh, I'm not going to be able to make that corner look that way. Or, oh, I'm not going to be able to... So it was a lot of things. As I went along, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to sacrifice this, this, and this. But so I basically ended up with an SVM version of WALL-E, not an actual carbon copy of WALL-E, which is fine. So I put the body in there to try and give me like a sense of scale, and now I'm filling in the tread. And I hadn't really decided how I wanted to do it, and I eventually decided to just throw some different colored wool in there in different shapes, and there's the last shape, and I'm like, not bad, not bad. And I think that's fine for what I was trying to do. And now I'm going to copy it and move it to the other side because I'm assuming that it's done, and I think it is done. So I copy it, put it over there, and now I'm going to work on the body. And luckily, I was able to find 3 pictures of WALL-E from the front or at a kind of like isometric angle from the side. And then I was able to find a photograph of a like life-size toy version of WALL-E. And it was a picture of his back. So I was able to see, it almost looks like he has a little backpack on his back. I'm not sure what it is because I know the center of him is supposed to be hollow because that's where he puts all the trash. So I'm not really there. I just brought up the photo of his back. It looks like he has a little like knapsack, or maybe he keeps stuff. I just watched the movie recently, and I don't remember if I know he puts stuff in himself to take home, but I don't think he puts it in his backpack or whatever that thing is. I decided to make it look a little bit different in color just to break up the monotony of the box because I didn't have the option of adding things like rust to my build. It sucks that there are certain colors that have variations like blue and gray, but then there are other colors that have no variation at all, like yellow. There's no bright yellow and dark yellow. There's no bright orange and dark orange. There's red and pink, but I wasn't building something red and pink. Here's something where I'm completely improvising. His neck joint was just impossible to make. Impossible. There's no way to do it. It's completely curved. It is cylindrical, and I just kind of made this joint up, and I think it's fine. And hopefully, when people look at the build, they're not going to be looking at the neck joint. They're going to be looking at the eyes, or they're going to be looking at the body, or both, and they're just going to ignore the part in between. The eyes were kind of an exercise in futility because the eyes are very curved. If you look at Wall-E from the front, they're very similar to human eyes in shape, which I'm sure was a very deliberate design choice for the film. But for Minecraft, that's kind of a problem. So I did the best I could, and I don't think it's too bad. I think the best thing about them is that I had just the right amount of space for the actual eye itself, and then I came up with a fun way to design the eye using glowstone, and I think it looks pretty good. Here I'm widening the joint for the binoculars because I realized that it was not big enough compared to the binoculars themselves. I added that little wire there, which I thought was after I added it, I was so glad I did. That was something that I picked up from Prof. Snape and Icona when we did the drum build-off. They made drum cymbal stands that had angles that were blocks that weren't touching each other. They were actually diagonal to each other, and I never thought to try that because I thought it would just look like things are floating in the air, and it does, but it totally gives you the illusion that they are attached somehow. So for the purposes of the wire at the back of Wall-E's binoculars, it was perfect. So thank you, Icona and Snape, for that one. I would have added more wires, but I think those were the only two that are visible on him, so I kept it with just those two. So I've added my eyes to the front, little glowstone with some glass panes in front of them. And it's only half an hour in, as I just pointed out. Took my second sip of Mountain Dew and had a Milky Way. And now I'm working on the arms, which are probably my least favorite part of the build. The problem with his arms is they move 360 degrees, they spin around, and I had to pick a direction, so I just kind of had them laying in front of him facing downward because that just seemed like the easiest thing to do. And if I had time, I would have changed the way they looked. I probably would have had one facing outward like normal, and then one would be doing something else. The other thing I wanted to do that I didn't have time for was add some rubble. I wanted to basically make a landscape around him, but I did not have enough time. By the time I got to where I could have done that, I only had about 5 minutes left, so I just scrapped it. But here's his hand, which I'm deciding already is too small, and I'm making it bigger. I made it something like half the size of what it really should have been for the scale of his body, so I'm fixing that. And then I'm going to move on to the detail work of his chassis. There are lots of little details going on in the body that I couldn't really replicate, but I tried to capture the general idea of them. And here's one that I'm adding. That is his front panel. That is the top of his front panel. And then I feel like the most important part of his top panel is the little solar panel thing. That's pretty much the only part that you see a lot of in the movie. There are other like buttons and dials and stuff. And here I'm about to change my mind. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Do this and this. Hey, that's better. But the only thing that you really see on his front panel is that little charging thing, because it's a device of the movie that when he runs out of charge, he needs to go out in the sun and warm up, which I always thought was really funny. And the last thing I want to add to his body, of course, is his Wall-E sign. And you're going to see me struggle for the next several minutes while I cannot figure out how to fit it in this space. And then I gave up and decided that the most important, again, I'm boiling things down to whatever the most important thing about them is. The most important thing is his E, because there are Wall-A's, and I'm just going to assume that there are wall eyes. I don't know. But there are definitely other versions of the wall robot. So the most important part of his body is the E. So I decided to just make the E, and I made it big and proud, and he's wearing it like a badge. And I thought that was a good design choice. And here I'm going to copy the second arm over to the other side using the flip command, which doesn't work the way I wanted it to because I didn't realize I was about to lose part of the hand when I did that, but it's fine. And then I just rebuild it. Also, while I was doing this, while I was doing the arms, I realized something I didn't really notice before. The point of the tracks I didn't even realize they were tracks. The point of the things on the side of his body is they are tracks for the arms to move along, which I thought is pretty cool. He can have his arm like up front, out in forward position, or he can have it in the back facing backwards, or he can have it at the bottom so his arms are down by his treads. It's pretty cool. I wish my arms did that. And here is the last attachment I have to do. The treads are not attached to the body, so I just kind of made up. That's the one part in the photos that I could not see anywhere. I tried several places to find a different angle of the bottom of Wall-E, and I had trouble finding it. So I just kind of made something up, which is a common theme in my build. But that's about it. I'm wrapping up just the final details here, adding or getting rid of some blocks just to add some curves to the body. And that's it. That is the Wall-E build. It is not an iPad, and it is not an obelisk from a Stanley Kubrick film.
So are we done? Wow, that looks nice.
Whoa. You guys are epic.
Yeah, take a look around, guys.
All I did was basically some not so flat pixel art.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to do the head. The head was the problem on the Sentinel.
So what is this guy?
Oh, Sentinel?
People were guessing that he was Goku.
He's the end of the world. Look at him. Wow.
Yeah, I like the destruction he's causing.